نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فقال الإمام أبو عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل الجعفي البخاري حدثنا زيد هو ابن أخزم قال أبو قتيدة سلم بن قتيبة حدثني مثنى بن سعيد القصير قال حدثني أبو جمرة قال لنا ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما ألا أخبركم بإسلام أبي ذر قال قلنا بلى قال أبو ذر كنت رجلا من غفار فبلغنا أن رجلا قد خرج بمكة يزعم أنه نبي فقلت لأخي انطلق إلى هذا الرجل كلمه وأتني بخبره فانطلق فلقيه ثم رجع فقلت ما عندك فقال والله لقد رأيت رجلا يأمر بالخير وينهى عن الشر إلى آخر الحديث. This is the hadith that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah has narrated in the chapter pertaining to the virtues of individuals and tribes, nations. This particular hadith pertains to the narration of how Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, one of the great Sahaba of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he accepted Islam. And these narrations, while they are historically significant and they give us a piece of our history and heritage, they also carry many lessons within them. And while we read and study these narrations for their historical significance and for their contribution to the seerah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his Sahaba, we also study them for learning important lessons that help us in our deen and in our dunya. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah narrates this hadith from four persons, all of whom were residents of Basra, of Iraq, which is one of the places that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah went to acquire the knowledge of hadith. And this narration has its chain ending at Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Once he said to his companions, should I not tell you about how Abu Dharr accepted Islam? Now Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu was from the tribe of Ghifar. Sometimes we hear people saying Ghaffar, Abu Dharr Al-Ghifari. He was not Ghaffari. Ghaffar is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Dharr Al Ghifari. The tribe is Ghifar. And these were people who lived out in the desert. Prior to Islam, they had many wrong habits and customs. And one of the things that they were known for was the fact that many of them were bandits. And people who used to pass by them, and you would have to pass by them in order to go to Sham, which is Syro-Palestine, or the area which is now divided into Syria and Palestine and the other neighboring countries. So on the way they would have to pass by this tribe, and many times their caravans would be attacked and robbed. This tribe was known for that. In fact, it's mentioned about Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu that he also used to partake in these expeditions, and he was known as one of the bravest, most courageous bandits of that tribe. So notwithstanding this, this was how he was raised, this is what he was taught, according to the customs of that tribe, that this is what we do, this is how we make a living. But his heart never accepted shirk. And he always believed that there could only be one God. He was very firm about this. He rejected all the other beliefs that people subscribe to from his tribe and from other tribes. In fact, he mentions about himself that even before I accepted Islam, I was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was praying salah. So people said that, what kind of salat were you praying? You had never met Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You had not accepted Islam. He said, I just prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they said that, what direction did you used to pray in? He said, whatever Allah ta'ala put in my heart, that direction I would pray in, with the intention that I am praying to Allah. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma says that Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu says, while I was one of the citizens of this tribe, news reached us that a person has emerged in Mecca and has declared that he is a prophet. And in the riwayah of Muslim, this hadith is also narrated by Imam Muslim and others. In that narration is mentioned that I heard that there's a person in Mecca saying that news is conveyed to him from the sky. Revelation is coming to him. So he told his brother, and the name of his brother was Anis or Unais. He said, go to this person and speak to him, this prophet, and tell me about him when you come back. So his brother departed to Makkah, met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, came back. When Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu inquired about him, he said, I met a man who invites towards all good and prohibits from all evil. In the riwayah of Muslim, it's mentioned, رَأَيْتُ رَجُلًا يَأْمُرُ بِمَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I saw a person who invites towards the highest of character. And when he talks, he says things which are very clear and they touch the heart, but it is not poetry. يَقُولُ كَلَامًا لَيْسَ بِالشَّعِرِ. So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said that, you haven't satisfied me with this little bit of news. I need to go and find out for myself. So he took a leather sack, filled it with water, and he took his stick with him, his staff, and he began to travel to Mecca. Upon reaching Mecca, he found that he was not able to recognize him, and he would not have been able to recognize him. And he did not want to ask anyone about him either. He got the feeling that perhaps this person's nation is not supporting him, and for me to ask about him could possibly get me into trouble. So he said, I just stayed in Masjid al-Haram and I spent my time in the masjid. I got by just drinking Zamzam water, waiting, hoping for some sign, some clue. So Ali radiallahu anhu passed by him. He said, Ali passed by me, and he said, you look like a traveler. كَأَنَّ الرَّجُلَ غَرِيبٌ. You look like somebody who's come from outside. He said, yes, I am an outsider. I am a traveler. He said, come with me to my home. So this was, first of all, something customary in the Arabs. Their hospitality was very high. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was granted prophethood, he introduced it as a part of deen. That it is not just a custom, but it is a part of deen that you take care of people, take care of guests. And he instilled this in the hearts of his Sahaba. Last week, we read a hadith in which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is telling people, feed people. Someone asked him, what's the best Islam? He said, well, you feed people and you say salam to whoever you know and whoever you don't know. Sahaba radiallahu anhum were encouraged and they were trained on this line that when you see somebody new in your area, you take care of them. Don't leave them to their own. At that time, a traveler to any of those lands would never have to find something like an inn or a hotel. Somebody would always approach them and offer their hospitality and take care of that person. The interesting thing about this is Ali radiallahu anhu was very young at this time. Because it's mentioned in some ahadith that he accepted Islam when he was 8 years old. In some ahadith it's mentioned that he was maybe even younger than that. And Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu has come to Makkah. So his age, the age of Ali radiallahu anhu was probably between 12 and 16 at the time of this particular event. So a young boy who at that age would normally be engaged in just playing and walking around and just passing time, enjoying himself. First of all, he's coming to the masjid. And secondly, he's not just coming to the masjid as a worshipper, but he is coming with these sentiments of hospitality and love and ikram. Which tells us how the Prophet ﷺ was training his people. What kind of training was he giving to his people? He wasn't just teaching people to pray. And he wasn't just working on the elders. Even a youngster who was in the fold of Islam understood that I must go to the masjid on my own, and it is my duty as a Muslim to look out after people regardless of whether they're a Muslim or not. So he sees a stranger, he asks him, he says, yes, I'm from outside. He says, come with me. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said, so I went with him. He didn't ask me anything, and I didn't tell him anything. He didn't ask me why you have come. And Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu also did not divulge his mission and his purpose. So from this we also learn another adab. That when you meet someone, right away don't start asking too many questions. Especially somebody who's new, instead of interrogating them, first offer them some ikram. Be nice to them. Don't make the person feel uneasy. Everyone has different circumstances. You don't know if the person is in a state of comfort or they're in a state of problems. So first, be kind to them. Offer them hospitality. Show them that you genuinely care about that person. So, he went, he ate there, he spent the night at his house, and then the next day he went back to the masjid to do some more inquiries about the Prophet ﷺ. But nobody that I saw would tell me anything. Nobody was talking about it. So Ali radiallahu anhu saw me again that day. So he said, أَمَا نَالَ لِلرَّجُلِ يَعْرِفُ مَنْزِلَهُ بَعْدِ? He said, it looks like you haven't found a place to stay yet. Or you haven't designated your destination. He said, no, I haven't. I haven't fixed my destination yet. I said, okay, come with me. So, this time, he went with him again. And this time, Ali radiallahu anhu asked him that, what is your purpose of coming here? What has brought you to this city? So he said, if you keep it a secret and don't tell anyone about me, then I will tell you. He said, definitely I will keep it a secret. He said, we have received news that in this place a man has emerged declaring that he's a prophet. So I sent my brother to speak to him. And he did that and came back. But I was not satisfied with the little information that he brought. So I wanted to come and see him myself. So Ali radiallahu anhu said that you have succeeded in your mission. Consider your mission accomplished. He said, come, I will take you to him right now. But look, follow me from a distance. Whenever I enter into a back street, you also follow me into those back streets. Don't get lost. And if I sense that you may be in danger of somebody following you and somebody tracking you down, I'm going to pause as if I'm fixing my shoe or doing something else. And you just keep walking past me as if you don't know me. And then we'll meet up ahead. So, like this, they proceeded until Ali radiallahu anhu guided him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu met the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, please tell me about Islam. The Prophet ﷺ presented Islam to him. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said that I accepted Islam immediately. Then the Prophet ﷺ advised him that, oh Abu Dharr, keep this matter a secret. Don't expose your Islam yet. Go back to your land, go back to your locality. When you hear that now we have prevailed and Islam has spread, then you come and meet me. So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said, I swear by him who has sent you with the truth, I will announce this in front of every single one of them. So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu went into the masjid at a time when the people of Quraysh were also there. So he said, O people of Quraysh, I testify, La ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. When they heard this, they said, get him. Go and attack this deserter. They called him a sabi. Sabi is someone who leaves one thing for another. Go and get this person who has left our deen. So they jumped on him, they attacked him. And I was hit in such a way, فَضُرِبْتُ لِأَمُوتِ, I was attacked in such a way that I would be killed. But Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anhu pounced upon me and bent himself over me. He shielded me. And then he turned around and said, what's wrong with you? You want to kill somebody from Ghifar? Even though that is where you have to pass by for your business and for all your affairs. You have to pass by this tribe. You're already scared of them. You want to go and kill somebody from them? And then you want them to take revenge? When they heard this, they all got scared. So they stepped back. The next day, Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu went back into the haram. And he said the same thing that he said the day before. And again they pounced on him. And they started beating him and beating him. But Abbas radiallahu anhu once again was there. He grabbed me. He shielded me from them. And he said the same thing that he told them the day before. And then they left him alone. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma says, this was the beginning of the Islam of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu. So we see a person who comes into Makkah scared for his own safety and security, and obviously being very precautious not to ask anyone, not to expose to anyone even why he's come. But the instant that he accepts Islam, something sparks and ignites inside him that makes him want to tell the whole world, regardless of what the consequences may be. This is actually a result of the power of Iman, and is actually a requirement of Iman, that once a person accepts Islam, they want to be open with it. They want everyone to know that this is who I am now. This is what I am. The Prophet ﷺ gave him the advice to go back and to keep this a secret for his own safety, because he was a brand new Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ never pushed new Muslims into difficult situations, into positions where they could potentially be harmed, or there would be undue duress and pressure on them. This was for his own security. It was not that he was prohibited from doing so, then he went and did so. No. This was Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam being kind and merciful on this new person who's accepted Islam. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, on the other side, wanted people to know. And he was prepared to handle the consequences. He knew what the consequences would be. They say that this hadith, which is also in Sahih al-Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ says that 3 things, if they come into a person, he tastes the sweetness of Iman. 3 things. One is that his love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam supersedes his love for anything and anyone else. أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما. The second thing is he starts loving people only for the sake of Allah. وأن يحب المرأة لا يحبه إلا لله. So now he is joining himself to people, or keeping himself away from people, for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No other gain. If he knows that the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in associating myself with such and such people, I will do so, whether I agree with them or not, whether they're from my tribe or not, whether they speak my language or not, whether we share the same political views or not. No. These are people of Iman. These are good, pious people. I need to be with them. So he does. And on the other side, if he knows that being with such a person or people will bring the displeasure of Allah, he will distance himself from them. And the third thing is أن يكره أن يعود في الكفر كما يكره أن يقذف في النار. That he dislikes and despises returning to kufr, or the things of kufr, the habits of kufr, just like he would dislike being thrown into a fire. When these 3 things come, then a person tastes halawat al-iman, the sweetness of Iman. So muhaddithin have said, what is the sweetness of Iman? So they write, istilzadu tahammul al-mashaq fi ta'atillah. That bearing hardships for the sake of Allah becomes a pleasure to them. When bearing hardships for the sake of Allah becomes something of pleasure, something of enjoyment to them, then this is a sign that this person has gained the halawa, the sweetness of Iman. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, just by their exposure to the great personality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which itself was a fountain. It was a fountain of beauty, of character, of piety, of love, of worship, of servitude to Allah. Just by staying with him, they used to get so many things, which is why the Sahaba radiallahu anhum have reached a rank that nobody can. It's from suhbah. They got to stay with him, even if it was for a moment. Even if somebody got to see him and died with iman, he's a sahabi. Nobody from the ummah can come close to that person now in rank. No one can. No matter how much ibadah they may do, no matter what achievements they may gain, they cannot be equal to the dust of the shoes of Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in. Why? Because they had that honor. They had that honor of just being in the company of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So the effect of it was magical. Anyone would sit with him, all of a sudden everything in their heart would change, their values would change, their likes and dislikes, interests, disinterests, everything would change. So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu announced his Islam knowing he was endangering himself. What about a Muslim who is living in an environment of peace, in an environment where he is protected, or she is protected? Doesn't it make sense to be open with one's Islam in that environment? Sahaba radiallahu anhum, within moments of accepting Islam, were ready to declare it to the world, to the enemies of Islam, that they knew would immediately do everything in their power to kill them, to destroy them. But what about the Muslim today who is living in peace, amongst peaceful people, in peaceful lands, where not only is he allowed to stay on his faith, he actually has rights, he has privileges. Why would a Muslim want to conceal their iman in such conditions? It is a sign of a very, very flimsy iman. Somebody who's just on the border, that just because of an unbased insecurity or fear, a feeling of threat, feeling of worry, just because of that a person would conceal his identity as a Muslim. Yet we see it happening. And even worse than that is that for the sake of some worldly benefit, somebody conceals their Muslim identity. For some business deal, he thinks that if I don't show myself as a Muslim, people will deal with me better. There's more chances, there's more business opportunities. So what does he do? He changes his name. All right. Don't call me Abdul Rahman. Call me Raymond. So that I fit in with you, so that I'm one of you, so that there's no difference between us anymore. So we can be partners in the true sense. People who adopt this attitude should be concerned that if I am so preoccupied with blending in, if I am so preoccupied with being what we call integrated, in that sense, there's nothing wrong with being integrated into a society. But if integrated means that I erase my own identity and adopt the identity of someone else, then I should be very worried about what condition and with whom I will be raised on the Day of Judgment. What if on the Day of Judgment, it is said to me that, well, you didn't distinguish yourself there. You wanted to fit in there, now go and fit in. Go and fit in with that group. What if that is said to us on the Day of Judgment? Identity is a very big thing. And some, they try to negotiate. That we're Muslim, but we're just the same. We're just like you. So this is not as extreme as the first level where you completely change yourself. These people are maintaining their Islamic identity, but they're reshaping Islam so that Islam is integrated with the rest of whatever people are doing. Yes, there are commonalities between religions. Those commonalities cannot be ignored. Many religions teach common elements and common teachings. Nothing wrong with that. But to say that we're just the same, there's no difference. This needs to be corrected. We are different. That's what makes us who we are. Our beliefs are different. Our behaviors are different, or they should be different. Our character should be different. Our goals should be different. Our way of upbringing our children should be different. Our appearance should be different. We should have a distinct Islamic identity. There is no clash. There's absolutely no contradiction between preserving your Islamic identity and being integrated into society. There's no contradiction between the two. You can be a full-fledged practicing Muslim and at the same time be a part of the society you are living in today and be accepted for it. So what needs to happen is we need to establish our identity that this is who we are, this is what we do, and become accepted for that. Not become accepted on the grounds that we're like everyone else. Others are doing this. Others are doing it, and it is paving the path for Muslims. People are preserving their identity. They're not changing it. We're not going to change our appearance. We're not going to change our dress. We're not going to change our symbols. No, that's what makes us who we are. But when it comes to worldly things, when it comes to being productive citizens, we are just as productive or more than you are. And here are the stats to prove it. These are our businesses. These are our university graduates. These are our professionals out there in the field. This is our contribution to the economy. This is our contribution to voluntary efforts. These are our contributions to humanitarian efforts. These are our contributions to your schools. These are our contributions to your infrastructure. We are here as a part of your society, but we're different. This is what needs to happen. So today, if somebody stands in the street or at work and announces that I'm a Muslim, people are not going to jump on them to kill them. So it makes sense to get closer and closer and closer to our actual identity. Our identity is what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us. Our identity is what Allah gave us when He said, "You are Muslims. Your father Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has named you Muslims." That's who we are. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the realization of this. And this needs to be generated in every home. Every home should be a factory where this is the agenda. This is being pushed and this is being channeled to every single individual living within our homes. So we live in this society being not just proud Muslims that I'm proud that I'm a Muslim, but people that are actually out there preserving their identity. And when it comes to the youngsters, believe me, there are many, many things distracting them, pulling them away, telling them to cover up all of this stuff, cover up all the religious stuff, put it to one side, make it secondary, or it doesn't matter. There's a huge challenge. There's a huge challenge that our youngsters are facing. But if the elders are shaky in their practices and in their adherence to the Islamic identity, it makes it more difficult for the youngsters who are growing up in this society. So the responsibility rests first on the shoulders of the elders, and then of course the youngsters are the next generation of Muslims. They're the next generation, I would say, of the representatives of Islam. And how precious and how valuable every single one of them is. But if they grow up losing it, not knowing the difference, thinking that they're just like everybody else, then that would be witnessing the vanishing of Islam from our progenies. May Allah save us. So we need to refresh this in ourselves and make some very strong resolutions that we will not compromise our Islamic identity in our homes, and we will raise our children as Muslims, as practicing Muslims before anything and everything else. Teach them about your country after, teach them about your culture after, teach them about your family after, teach them about your deen first. Teach them about Allah, teach them about the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teach them about the Sahaba, and tell them that is what makes us who we are. May Allah give us tawfiq and understanding. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika.